Whenever I test something new, I think it's interesting to see how testing more things might change what I think about other things that I've reviewed in the past. Also, there's sometimes a huge difference between how you think something is going to work based on a photo or a video, and then you get to test it yourself firsthand. Hello YouTubers, this is the noobifier. Today we're looking at what would be a hefty investment in a piece of simulation gear. The CH2 from Qubic is what is called a skid platform. The CH2 is designed to operate only in 2 degrees of freedom. These are yaw, known as kappa, and in the Y, which is also called surge. This product can work alone perfectly fine, but it's designed to work in addition to and with other Qubic actuators. Isolating these two can be seen as the next level or the holy grail in immersion and a valuable tool to anyone who may also want to use simulation for training. During testing, the kappa and the surge were more important as an indicating axis than the others. It was actually very easy to determine how important these were simply by turning them off during a session and then reactivating the CH2. I'm going to be referencing to Kyle throughout the video. Kyle, as many of you know, is a good friend. We've also known each other for many years. Kyle is often the first to come over when there's a new piece of gear or when there's a new idea to test. Kyle drags, drifts, and drives actual cars professionally, so his input often becomes the confirmation that I need when finishing up these reviews. I test, Kyle tests, and then we talk. So as I said, the CH2 is an expensive piece of hardware, which is around $10,000 US. When combined with a set of QS220 actuators, that would raise the total price closer to $20,000. This is how it's configured throughout the video, but there's nothing stopping you from using the CH2 with the more budget-friendly QS210, and I just did a review on those recently. Dreaming is part of being human. This is why we watch TV shows like Top Gear, despite knowing that I will never be able to be in a position to own a supercar like what they show us. The same can be seen here, and I appreciate and acknowledge that what we're talking about is simply unobtainable based on its cost for most, except for a few. But this shouldn't stop your interest and enjoyment in watching the video. If you are, however, one of those lucky few who are in the market for such a thing, there are many ways to get in touch with me. The Qubic CH2 will operate standalone, as I said, and it'll happily operate below a static simulation base. We briefly tested this configuration, and it was an interesting experience, providing, as I said, what turned out to be 2 of the more telling motions. Surge does a solid job at translating acceleration and indicating hard braking, and slip, of course, is a very strong early warning of when a car is about to begin a drift. This is the real advantage that you get from this system when driving at the limit. When you combine CH2 with 3 more degrees of freedom, the whole experience is more than the sum of the parts. We already talked about the cost. You get what you pay for. And when I describe motion in systems that are this capable, I needed to come up with a better word. It's more appropriate to use the word impulse instead of movement to describe what these actuators can do. Impulse is spontaneous inclination or spontaneous change. Impulse describes big changes over greater distances or over greater angles in a very short period of time. The feeling that you get from impulse like this requires overbuilt hardware and more power from your wall. I've tested many, and this delivers the most impulse. If the goal is to recreate reality, then the goal is to become immersed. Our overall goal would be to replicate within reason the feeling that you get from doing the actual activity. The first observation was, for both Kyle and I, is that there is a fundamental difference between being moved and the feeling of being moved. Simply being twisted in yaw itself isn't as effective or as important as the feeling or sensation of being twisted. Being turned left or right is fun, but the feeling of being turned becomes immersive. And this is why I keep harping on those lower speed, low power systems. It's not that they're not doing what they advertise, and it's not that they're bad. It's just that there's a difference in feeling between haptics, motion, and impulse. And it's impossible for me to convey this to you in a video. It's not the same, and it's only those who have come here to test haptics and impulse who actually understand. Impulse does more to recreate the feeling, so much more than simply being tilted about. As Kyle described when drifting the CH2 the other day, the system is capable of recreating the force translated through the seat bolsters into your torso. Some systems have airbags that can apply and maintain pressure against your lumbar and against your legs. This pressure is another way to achieve the feeling, but such a system still does not translate very well like this one. After hours of testing, I've come to the conclusion that it's the force while also being displaced that matters. The semicircular canals within your ear is how we are able to telegraph motion motion. Fooling your inner ear is much more effective at tricking your brain than applying pressure against your body. The nerves for balance are the quickest, and this is why it's important for the motion system to achieve impulse. Motion that is able to fully fool your perception of the simulation. We found that smaller motions in yaw also translate very well above or when combined with roll impulse. The little bit of tail wagging in the rain under braking. I can describe this as something that many of you might have experienced over and over in real life. At high speeds, you plow down on the brakes in a straight line. That weight transfer makes the back lighter and it starts to break away and want to pitch away a little bit. In ACC and Automobilista, this wiggle is actually being reported in the telemetry, and that feeling prompts me to adjust my brake bias and the ABS settings. Adjusting not just by what you see on the screen or hearing in the headphones, but feeling it in your body and inside your inner ear. Kyle and I believe this to be the difference between immersion and the point where the simulation becomes a real training tool. We didn't just feel like we're being moved. The software moves the platform to give us the forces needed to trick the mind into feeling moved. It's very different. I'm going to cover some basic details. Shipped in a crate, the CH2 arrives fully assembled. Once the wooden crate was open, I grabbed the manual, the wiring, and the casters. The casters wouldn't help me move it from the garage, but they are a fantastic feature. With the casters, you're able to quickly move the system to clean, do maintenance, or do some basic cable management. The casters let me quickly convert my studio space into a home theater to put that 77 OLED to work. Place the casters, threaded the bolts, tighten to lift. I have a pair of ratchets so I can do both at the same time, and in about 30 seconds per side, we're rolling. To bring the CH2 into the studio, it took both Kyle and I with mover straps. We have experience with moving such things, but the CH2 presented its own set of challenges because it doesn't and it shouldn't be taken apart. It can come apart, but you don't want to take it apart. There are very nice places to grab, but because the top and bottom are able to move independently of each other, it was important to ratchet strap the entire unit together as one. We also took our time navigating the stairs. It's a giant metal rectangle at 1.3 meters long, 1 meter wide, and 0.2 meters tall. The device is 150 kilograms, which is 330 pounds. When in operation, it will extend a total of 10 centimeters from +5 to -5 centimeters. It will twist a total of 14 degrees from +7 to -7. This twist occurs near the front, amplifying the effect on the passenger. Everything seems like it's grossly overbuilt, but when you see it in operation, when you see that impulse, you'll understand why there was extra effort placed on its build. The actuators have a rated impulse of 80 centimeters per second, a velocity of 31 inches per second, and remember that these work as a pair, which amplifies the rotational speed because one can push as the other one pulls. The pair of actuators are connected electronically directly to a control box, and this is the same setup that you see on QS220 and 210, but connected to a platform with a central bearing. The setup was simple. With the serial number printed on the device, you're able to download the software and install. The wiring is next, and there are only two main connections. First, there is the path for the safety lockout, and second is the data path. You ensure that the ID switches are where they should be on the three boxes, and this lets the system know which set of actuators are meant to do what motions. You plug in the power source, connect the PC with the M10. On the subject of power sources, there's no way to use the power switch on the cabinet once the CH2 is down on the floor. In reality, you should double and triple check all of the cable management and connections before laying it flat on the ground. For ease, I've left the power switch on, and all three of the control boxes are plugged into a single large gauge power bar that is mounted below inside the MTS sim base. That's one switch to rule them all. I protected some of the wires with a neoprene sleeve to make things look a little bit cleaner. The Qubic Manager software is a true one-stop shop for firmware and your game profiles. It does an audit every time you launch to seek out what newly installed software might be there, and with the Action Center on the right, you're going to have a one-click option to configure for that title. Everything is done for you here, and with the individual profiles, it's easy to get things working the way you want. For AC, Assetto Corsa, Kyle had kept everything set at 100%, but ended up setting yaw to 130 because he drifts, and this ended up being that sweet spot. I also have my own profile saved for AC with a completely different set of settings based on what I like. In flight sims, I ended up having a completely different set for jets and planes and choppers. Again, you don't need to be satisfied with the base settings, you're able to tune. So now I'm going to speak a little bit about the build quality, the issues I had getting it to work with my existing Monster Tech platform, and some final notes. The build quality is great, with thread lock bolts and nylock nuts all over the place. The polished friction plates glide on anti-seize as the system moves around. The powder-coated frame has a semi-gloss finish which is very easy to clean. The CH2 looks mechanical and deliberate. I think it looks cool just sitting there in the room idle, and it's interesting to watch it in operation as an observer. I personally feel its aesthetics will age fine, and I think it'll still look great in 10 years. As maintenance is concerned, I periodically grease the friction surface, but I don't expect to invest very much time into keeping it working well. It's actually quite easy to maintain. I have it on a tile floor, and a Roomba cleaner passes every night just to keep the dust down. Perhaps if you have pets or carpet, it might be wise to dust it out more frequently, but this is no different than placing a PC on the floor next to your desk. Under the category of issues, being an early adopter for me, my out-of-the-box experience presented one interesting challenge. The CH2 uses 4 captive actuator cups, and these were designed to be used with the Qubic CH1 platform. The cups are designed to ensure that the leg can never lift out as it moves, but this means that it must be perfectly lined up with the actuator. The MonsterTech MTS is the simulation rig that's placed on the CH2. I can easily set the distance along its length, but the width of the MTS is fixed. I invested a morning to fabricate a set of adapter plates, and I'm going to quickly explain. For $40, I got a length of aluminum left over from a local metal shop. It was cut down to 4 plates, 4 holes were drilled, and then a tapered edge was machined into each. This would secure the plates to the CH2 top deck using the original holes. To get the plates to lay flat, the underside needed to be hollowed out a little bit to clear some bolts that stick out of the deck. Once all of that was done and everything was tightened down, next the platform was placed into position. The cups were moved such that each foot rested perfectly on the middle of the cup. And then using a punch, I marked the middle of each bolt hole. These new holes were drilled and tapped, resulting in a custom adapter that mounts my CH2 to the MonsterTech MTS. I'm told that Qubic is working on some kind of solution, an adjustable mounting plate. This was really easy to fabricate, but if you don't have the tools, it would seem like a very big issue and perhaps a major blocker. So, what is it like to use, and who is this for? It takes an already immersive 3DOF experience and adds more. If you want immersion, this provides some of the best automotive sim that I've tested, perhaps even, dare I say, better in some ways than QSS25. QSS25 is extremely smooth, that's what most people say. But this combination is stable, which gives me more confidence to set the motion more violently than I usually would, and I find that this provides me an even better experience. I've been lucky to test many setups lately, and the programming that was done to make these two parts work together is great. When you apply throttle at launch, you're thrown back, but you can see the top platform pitches just a little bit to catch you. The instant action is followed by a slower recentering or ghost maneuver, which moves you back to the middle without you feeling it. Now the system is ready to move you again, over and over again. When leaving a jump on a rally stage, you're pushed upward and then pulled down, giving you the feeling of flight. In the air, the system pulls all of the vibration because your tires are suspended, and when you crash down, you get that slam and a little bit of wiggle as the car settles itself. You steer in and keep the pedal down. In drift, you can actually feel when your outside rear tire falls off into the grass. You can feel when someone accidentally gets too close and your front bumper taps the other car door. When you're in the lead and someone taps your door, you can feel it and you automatically steer in to compensate. You can feel traction break loose as the torque overcomes the rear wheels. I'm trying to do this justice. I got to talk with Kyle and I plan to put a little bit of our conversation at the end of the video. What I want to say is that it's really good and very convincing. In Microsoft Flight, I love the feeling of flying a helicopter. As the airframe changes during its flight, I can feel what it's doing and counteract for this. When landed, there's a little slight of imbalance in the main rotor, and that is captured by the software, and you can actually feel it as the tail section oscillating just a little bit. Little details like this all add up, including being able to feel when you're banking well or if the balance is off and your bank is messy. The same is true when taking off in a plane. As you pick up speed, the aircraft becomes lighter and starts to drift a little bit. All of this is translated in real time into the chair and up into your spine. A little bit of opposite pedal and the drift is addressed before it becomes an issue. Driving and flying are better. So as Kyle was hoping, because the CH2 turns about its front, this magnifies the rotation and provides a legit training platform between races. Mr. Gladwell said that it takes 10,000 hours to achieve a mastery in a skill, so I understand why Kyle trains so often. Kyle has his own MTS rig at home, but with this new piece of hardware in the studio, I'm expecting and hoping that he will spend even more time here, and my plan is to document Kyle in a video called Real Driver Fake Car. This is part of an ongoing series to explore if sim can be good enough. I get the real people, interview them, and then find out what they think of the systems. I could go on and on about what it's been like testing the CH2. The video pretty much shows you what it's like. Stay tuned for more, and if you made it to the end of the video, I would like to say thank you for spending your time with me. Sim safe.
So this is a better training tool than the Stewart platform for grip?
100%. Like, so I can I can feel all the little things. Like right there, I understeered a little. Whoops. And I can feel that. Like,
but I'm able to, so I'm watching both of you at the same time. Yours whips like a car.
yeah, exactly.
So I think that the one that drives in is giving him the feeling of being turned, but not the force of being turned.
That's the thing I will say with this. Like, it's aggressive and it probably looks really aggressive, the movements, but I mean, that's what happens in real life. Like, you don't move smoothly from one side of the car to the other.
Right, your kidneys feel it.
So like, you actually get the G-force, like the funny feeling in your stomach when you're whipping from side to side.
Right.
Easy. I got stuck. You're faster, way faster than me though. Oh. That was not on purpose. Well, because like you can actually feel things happen, you don't, like, you're trying to avoid contact a little more than regular because you actually feel it. Not just assume it's happening, you know? All right, I need to make a couple changes.